They don't understand how much of a done deal this is. You've got BlackRock in the game, you've got the US government in the game. I'd said this was going to happen for years now. STRC. The goal of that product is to hold your dollar value at $100 par. Any trading volume above $100 gets sold, and that gets converted into Bitcoin.
This is the first time that strategy doesn't need to dilute the common in order to purchase Bitcoin.
It's going to be the product that takes MSTR to 1 million Bitcoin. The smartest treasury company is the one that just buys MSTR shares and says, we can't beat MSTR, we're just going to buy MSTR shares. At the end of the day, let's just stick with the king. There are people in the world that are feeling so incredibly held down because of the financial systems that they're in. You know your government is fucking you. You know that, but you can't do anything about it for whatever reason. Well, nobody knows what the hell is going on. They sent B2 last year to blow up the nuclear program. We were then told that the entire nuclear program was completely destroyed. So now the US is back to destroy the thing that was destroyed last year. None of it makes any sense, right? So in that environment, when you're dealing with that much uncertainty, Bitcoin is the best thing to have.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Bitcoin News Channel. I'm your host, Rob Wallace, and today I'm very grateful to be joined by none other than British HODL, investor, commentator, and the man possibly solely responsible for creating the most whole coiners throughout the course of the 2020s. Sir, how you doing today?
What an introduction. That's a really great introduction. I don't know if that's true. I think Larry Fink probably has me beat, but that's a wonderful introduction. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, you've been pounding the table for years, right? Get to 1 Bitcoin. But have we lost that mentality? Are people no longer going for that goal?
Of course, yeah, no. But you know, that goal, I was saying it for so long, like the reason why this goal is because at some point it's not going to be possible for this goal to be this goal. And it's kind of weird for me to see it happen, considering I was talking about it for so many years. But it is what it is. That's what happens when when infinite demand meets absolute finality of scarcity. This is what you get. You get pricing out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, even at $10,000 a coin, people thought, oh, I'll never get to a whole coin. And now it's 7x that. And you still got to keep the dream alive, because if you don't think you can become a whole coiner, you never will be.
Yeah, I think you need a North Star, right? Like everyone just needs a North Star. And if your North Star is like 0.1 Bitcoin, I mean, you just give up now. It just doesn't matter. What's it going to do anyway? Like I find it hard right now to even tell someone, let's say someone's like in their 20s or 30s and they're talking to me, they've saved up $30,000 or whatever, and they they want to invest in, something, they want to make something of their life. It's like, at that point, do you go set up your own business or do you put all of that into Bitcoin? It's a tough conversation even at this point.
Yeah, and since you've started with that message, get to 1 Bitcoin, lots of different financial products have been created and proliferated in the market, right? So there's lots of new shiny objects to distract someone from that mission to 1 Bitcoin. And one that's really taken over the airwaves over the last couple of weeks is, of course, STRC, the perpetual stock from MSTR strategy. So for people who don't know what Stretch is, give a brief explanation, please.
There's a whole market of investments called fixed income. And these investments are basically a way for you to give a company money. That company then can use that money to do its business operations. And then they pay you a dividend, a fixed dividend, to supplement any income. And a lot of this is for retirement accounts and retirees and stuff like that. So, people look at that, Bitcoiners look at that and go, oh, who the hell would want to do that? Because I'm good at hodling my Bitcoin and grinding through every, iteration of the cycle there is. But that's, roughly a $300 trillion market, right, of just fixed income. So MSTR decided that they wanted to offer fixed income because apparently Michael Saylor was sitting around with ChatGPT or something, and it came out with this idea. And they launched it. And basically, it's a product where you buy it in the market and they'll pay you a fixed dividend on a monthly and subsequently annual basis. And currently, I think it's 11.5%. And that's it. So what the goal of that product is to hold your dollar value at $100 par. Anything above $100, any trading volume above $100 gets sold at the money, and that gets converted into Bitcoin for MSTR. So, the provider of that product, MSTR, knows what the business is. The buyer of the product, the customer, knows what the business is. Anything above 100 is going to get converted into Bitcoin for MSTR. And it's done wonderfully well. This last week was the first week where they basically zero ATM on the actual common stock. And all of the Bitcoin, 13,000 roughly, whatever it was, 14,000 Bitcoin, came from STRC. This product has taken a long time to actually, well, relatively a long time, because it's only like 12 months into issuance. So this is a wonderful product. It's done amazingly well, and I think this is going to be Michael Saylor and MSTR's. It's going to be the product that takes MSTR to 1 million Bitcoin.
Yes, it has definitely caught the attention of Wall Street and lots of large market participants, especially in the last month or so. And it is the fastest product, quote unquote, to $5 billion in revenue, as Fong Li, CEO of MSTR, likes to say. So this is the iPhone moment, and the first time that strategy doesn't need to dilute the common in order to purchase Bitcoin. So this is a huge deal, but we've seen some people say this is too good to be true. There was a big expose by Coffeezilla yesterday, and he said that this thing is being marketed inappropriately, saying that it is not to be looked at as a savings account or a money market account, and that it is not truly fixed income. What response do you have to Coffeezilla?
I haven't seen his stuff yet, but I mean, if Coffeezilla, who is awesome at ripping people to shreds, looked through everything and said this is being marketed inappropriately, I think that's an overall win. I mean, that guy is good at ripping out the souls of people and digging up skeletons that their skeletons didn't know that they had. So from that perspective, if he went through that and his conclusion was this is being marketed inappropriately, then fair enough. How is something supposed to be marketed, especially when it's the first time ever in history that it's being done? So you're going to learn through this process. If he thinks it's being inappropriately marketed, that's up to him. I think we're trying to figure out how to market this, and in that iteration process is where we're at.
And so 80% of the purchases of STRC are from retail. Do you think that this is a retail product in the long run? Who is this right for?
I mean, I think a product develops. Like, look at Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin was for the cypherpunks, and then it kind of became for the speculators, and then it kind of became for, the hard money people, and then it kind of became for retail. And so products develop, right? And as a product goes through its life cycle, and most importantly, the left tail risk gets diminished, the product will be for different people. The fact that 20% of STRC's buyers are actually institutional is quite big for the fact that it's 8 and 10 months into it, right? Mm-hmm. And as that grows, I think you'll see more and more institutional buyers come into it. But institutional buyers don't rush into purchases, right? They're taking their time. They want to make sure that the product works the way it says it's going to, the way it's pitched to work. And again, it's the first time ever in history that a product like this has happened. So we've got to give it some time, give it some maturation period, and then I think you're going to see institutions flood into it.
And another critique of STRC is that now it's growing, right? It's growing quite rapidly, and that means that the dividend payments need to keep up with that, right? And so someone was posting online that even if MSTR was at its all-time highs, $540, they would need to 4x the amount of shares of MSTR in order to pay these dividends in over the long run. Do you think that this could be a problem, that it could grow too big?
How are they 4xing the amount of shares? That must mean what are they? I mean, I'd have to see that calculation, but they're basically trying to pay all of the dividends for the next decade or something.
I think to cover like the 2-year cash hoard that they have that pays for dividends.
Yeah, look, again, this is a brand new product, but the main thesis underneath this product is we are going to offer 11.5%, and we're going to buy an asset that's compounding at 30%. That is the business proposition. If Bitcoin does not compound at 30% and it only compounds at 5%, MSTR has a problem, right? Now, the good news is that they've managed to, and they continue to ATM the common stock and build up the reserves for the dividend payments. But I think even Michael Saylor would look at that and go, well, the thesis here is Bitcoin compounds at a specific level. And if it compounds at less than the dividend rate on STRC, I think there is a problem there. So we'll see how that pans out. But thus far, that's not been an issue. But again, all of this is part of that left tail risk conversation, which is, over time, this will get proved out.
Yeah. And with this machine that is accumulating over 10,000 Bitcoin a week now for MSTR, the goal of 1 million Bitcoin is within reach, right? How far do you think MSTR will go? And is there ever a point where it's too much Bitcoin for one entity to have?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. As more and more entities come into the game, like I don't think iBit is sitting there not noticing how much Bitcoin MSTR is sucking up, right? And of course, iBit's going to start getting more and more aggressive on their marketing and everything else to suck more Bitcoin into iBit. The beautiful thing about iBit, a lot of people aren't mentioning this, but they bought. Robert Mentioning has done an amazing job here. It bought $50 billion into this brand new fund. 4 years ago, Larry Fink is basically saying no one's interested in Bitcoin. They launch it within 2 years, $50 billion comes into it. The asset drops by 50%, and they only see net redemptions of 2%. That is phenomenal. No one inside BlackRock, no one on Wall Street has ever seen that before. So, iBit's, again, a massive competitor in the space. And if I know something about BlackRock and something about that team is that they're not going to be sitting there, not trying to get more Bitcoin into iBit. So I think that all these competitions are going to continue.
And so when it comes to other treasury companies, do you think that they'll be able to replicate the STRC model? I mean, of course, Strive does have SATA, but do you think there's going to be as many perpetual preferred stocks as there are treasury companies?
I don't know. It's a very entertaining concept for me. I was flirting with the treasury company space last summer when it was. I got caught up in the hype cycle of it all, and so But again, I was saying like I'm putting in 0.5% of my net worth into some of these treasury companies, and they're all shit, right? They're all shit right now. So, at the end of the day, my activity bias caught the better of me in that moment. So, I think MSTR is by far and above the winner. Look, when you're thinking about a portfolio and you're thinking about an investment, firstly, we've never in the history of the entire universe had an asset like Bitcoin. So it's already hard to do what Bitcoin is doing, right? It's already difficult. Then you add on that MSTR, and in order for MSTR to justify its position in my portfolio, it has to compound significantly more from a risk-adjusted basis than Bitcoin. And it has thus far, right? It has compounded more than Bitcoin. But if MSTR was only compounding as much as Bitcoin, why would I hold it? Doesn't make sense. I would just rather hold the Bitcoin and de-risk the position. Similarly, all of these other treasury companies, they're not trying, if you've realized, they're not trying to beat Bitcoin. They're trying to beat MSTR. So you've had Lightning strike once, right? And then now you've had Lightning strike twice with MSTR. And now what you're trying to do is get Lightning to strike 3 times. Like, how greedy do you want to be across this palette, right? You got Bitcoin compounding at 30%, MSTR compounding at 45%, whatever it is. What do you need? You need 70%? And by the way, all of these other companies are shitbags, right? They're so small, they don't have enough Bitcoin. So you really need, like, how much return do you need to justify the risk-adjusted allocation? Mm-hmm. Is it twice as much as MSTR? Because it isn't just 5% more than MSTR, right? If MSTR is at 45%, you don't want to invest in another treasury company for 5%. It's not worth the risk. Is it 80% CAGR that they need? Is it 90%? I don't know, but I don't think any of them are going to do it.
And it's so funny to think back a year ago it was like sort of the peak of this mania for treasury companies, right? And you were in those conversations. I'm sure you were asked to invest if you wanted to invest in many of these things. And so talk about, it's so funny because you don't really know you're in a mania when you're in it, right? Because it just feels like a new paradigm has been found here and this thing is going to go up forever. But then in time you realize, oh wow, that didn't really work out. So talk about that mindset, and where are these companies today? Are they still talking to you, and what's the future for them?
Yeah, look, I invested in Nakamoto which, funnily enough, turned out to be the only one that I invested in before the rest of the market, right? The reason why, and again, I want to reiterate, at that time I was saying I'm going to put in less than 0.5% of my total net worth into all of these, right? And not each, but total. So, and that's what I did, right? So it's like, okay, so I invested in Nakamoto. I thought it was unique in terms of, out of all of them, if any one of them has the ability to create the distribution that's needed to actually make a treasury company, work, is Nakamoto. Because one of the things that, retail doesn't realize, the only way these treasury companies work is if there's trading volume, right? There has to be trading volume. And Nakamoto has the distribution channel of BTC Inc. and that whole publication channel to actually potentially create trading volume like MSTR does. And so that's why, I was like, okay, my friends are investing in, let me just get in as well. It was one of those ones. So, we'll see. I mean, I think David Bailey has an amazing platform, and it just depends on what him and the team does with it. But was it worth going through all of that at this point? No, not really. I should have just held MSTR.
Yeah. And another company that is going to be holding just MSTR is BitStrategy, right? Ryan,
I saw that the other day.
One of the original MSTR True North guys. He started a new company where
one emerges out of all of them, I guess. Like that's just what. And it's so funny to me because literally, I can't remember. It was like 6-7 months ago. I started saying like the smartest treasury company is the one that just buys MSTR shares and says we can't beat MSTR. We're just going to buy MSTR shares. And Ryan's the only one that joined the company that wants to do this. So we'll see. He's clearly the smartest one out of all of them at this point. And I love all of them, right? It's not, I love Jeff. I love all of them. But, certainly it takes something. I mean, Strive did the same thing. They bought STRC, right?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it's like, okay, like, let's just stick with the king. I don't understand. Like, why does everyone want a new king every day? Just stick with the king.
But theoretically, I mean, buying MSTR, you need to outperform MSTR, right? How do you do that? You buy on leverage? Is that how it's supposed to work?
I don't know. Unless I haven't looked into it, but unless, the objective is we've got some trapped capital somewhere in the world, which can't access MSTR, and we're going to provide the vehicle to access MSTR. Maybe that's the approach here.
Maybe that's the approach. Yeah. I mean, it's
after going through the whole thing, that's the only way a treasury company investment makes sense to me. It's like, if there's trapped capital, you can't get, like Japan, for example, right? Trapped capital everywhere, Bitcoin, 55% taxes, no ETF, et cetera, can't put it in a retirement account. Okay. Maybe use a treasury company, maybe buy Metaplanet. But like outside of that, what's the point?
And do you see this stack continuing, and is it sustainable? Because now we've got this shitcoin, right? APXY. It's an altcoin that buys STRC. I think they have 100 million shares, something crazy like that. And they are offering a dividend as well. Do you think that this stack is sustainable?
Yeah, what I'm looking for is a country to offer a US dollar savings account backed by STRC. That's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for that. I'm waiting for a country like El Salvador. Once I watched his last presentation at Strategy World, as I'm watching it, I texted Max Kaiser and I was like, Max, like this is a really great thing for El Salvador because El Salvador could offer, a slightly more higher risk, right? Because of the left tail risk on STRC. It's a new product, but a slightly more higher risk US dollar savings account in El Salvador and offer an 8% yield, right? they would have $1 trillion flying in cash from all around Latin America to El Salvador, and it would probably increase the GDP by tens of percentage points of the country, and they would make a 3% rip off of it, right? So you let STRC. This is how cash management. This is how cash management is done, right? When you put your money into a bank account, they're using cash management strategies to generate yield on it. So it's a normal business. It's nothing spectacular. They're just buying. Normally they buy 2-year treasuries, or instead of that, just buy STRC. You're getting 11%, pay out 8%, you make a 3% rip. So that's what I'm waiting for. When does a country get behind that?
Speaking of El Salvador, have you ever been to Bitcoin country?
No.
No. Okay. Check it out. It's definitely worth going, I would say. Advise in the fall. Yeah, it's a nice place.
Yeah, I'll check it out for sure. I love, I used to live in South America, so yeah, I love South America, and yeah, I'll absolutely check it out.
So now let's talk about the market in general, right? We were at 126, now we're at 74. How do you feel about Bitcoin? How has it performed? I heard you say that you still think we got an all-time high coming before the next halving.
Yeah, I struggle to get behind the 4-year cycle argument at this point, just for many different reasons. But I think that we've not had a good credit cycle, we've not had a good liquidity cycle, we've not had a good confidence cycle, we've not had Bitcoin give us any kind of euphoric top here. I might be wrong. Right, I'm willing to be wrong, and if I'm wrong, we'll reevaluate. Like, okay, well, maybe this just does work on a 4-year, and forever. Like, that doesn't sound likely, but maybe that's what it is. I don't know, but I can't get behind a 4-year cycle argument at this point with how many things have changed.
I wanted to briefly interrupt today's interview to give a big shout out to our lead sponsor, Rhino Bitcoin. Rhino is the all-in-one Bitcoin super app built by Bitcoiners for Bitcoiners. Buy or sell instantly. Send sats anywhere on the Lightning Network. Withdraw straight to cold storage. Even turn sats into gift cards or link to a Casa multisig, all within one sleek interface. And Rhino is just warming up. Soon, you'll pay bills, borrow against your Bitcoin, and save for retirement, all without leaving the app. Download Rhino at rhinobitcoin.com or tap the link in the description below. Use promo code BitcoinNews and Rhino will drop you $10 of free Bitcoin into your account today. Secure your stack with Rhino Bitcoin and enjoy the rest of the video.
And now you look at STRC. So it's not even, STRC wasn't around a year ago. Just think about that, right? So, we're going to see. I do think that there's an all-time high coming. The ISM numbers, the confidence cycle, the business cycle is starting to creep up. We got a new Fed chair coming in May. The problem is that we've got midterms happening. So, and in a midterm year, typically both parties are trying to screw around in the US, trying to win the election. So the markets kind of take a hit. So we'll see what happens with that. Maybe we just go sideways. But I think overall retail is completely cooked with Bitcoin. This is not going to be a retail driven market. Retail will come in right at the end for the last sort of pump when they get excited. But yeah, it's weird for me because I said this was going to happen for years now. If you look at any of my videos, I was talking about how the fact that they're going to pull out the dopamine from the market, which is what's going on. They're going to suck out the leverage. They're going to all of these things, and they're absolutely happening. So at this point, even if Bitcoin, I saw a post from Dan the other day, even if Bitcoin gets to 300,000. And it just snails there by 2030, it's still a 35 to 40 something percent CAGR, which is better than anything else, and you're just sitting around. So I don't think that happens. I think we do get euphoric highs, and right now is the right time for it because we've got all kinds of chaos going on in the world, and global liquidity has started to rise, and the confidence cycle has started to rise, all in lockstep.
And I mean, you've spoken to a lot of people, and when we were at those all-time highs back in October, the euphoria in terms of retail, you're right, it wasn't there. Yeah. And so in terms of your audience, who you're speaking to, who remains, who's listening to you, and who is carrying the message forward?
Oh, a lot of people are listening to me, but how many people are relevant? Probably 0.5% to 1%.
Yeah. And so you think it's institutional days now?
I said this in 2024. In
Yeah.
2024, I said that I think we've hit the peak of Bitcoin education. This is
Mm.
when everyone was trying to, clamor around and teach their favorite empanada stand maker how to accept Bitcoin as a currency and all this sort of shit, all this sort of utter horse shit. And I told them, I was like, look, I think we've hit peak Bitcoin education. Personally, I think using Bitcoin as a transaction tool at this point is a waste of brain power anyway. But I think we've hit peak Bitcoin education. I think when you look at the Western audiences, which is the ones with the money, like I don't really care about your regular empanada stand maker that's going to take my Bitcoin and convert it into US dollars to pay his bills. I might as well just give him the US dollars, right? So, you know, as far as the Western market goes and the markets with the capital, they don't care anymore. They want to speculate, they want to trade, they want to leverage, they want to make money. They want to buy, their favorite watch, their car, their whatever, and they want to escape their retirement tomorrow. And Bitcoin is now too much of a stable asset, so they don't care. But the good news is that when an asset gets boring, that's when the wealth is made. When Apple got boring, that's when Warren Buffett got involved, and it was his most successful investment ever. So, that's what's happening with Bitcoin now. It's becoming boring, and this is when the wealth is made.
Yeah. And one thing that we've seen go crazy in the last year, of course, is gold. Um, Talk about the gold market. You have some experience in this, right? Compare Bitcoin to gold in 2026. Would you advise young people to put any money into gold?
No, look, the way I invest is my thinking is different. Like if you need buckets, so people always talk about diversification, right? Diversification to me doesn't happen within a sector. I diversify with sectors if I want to diversify. And so, when I'm looking at Bitcoin, it's the gold trade but better. So therefore, why do I need to hold any gold? And as most people know, I sold all of my gold and silver positions by the end of 2020 and put it all into Bitcoin because it's just a better trade than gold. Right. One of the things that here we got in the UAE, obviously, it's been involved in this excursion, as your president likes to call it. And there was a moment where people were getting offered 30% less than market value for their gold because they had to sell it right now in order to leave, and you can't leave with gold, right? And Bitcoin doesn't have that issue, right? I can get on a plane with Bitcoin with no issues. And that's a huge advantage. So it's not only the same trade as gold, but it's 10 times better. And so, when it comes to do I think people should hold gold if you've got a nostalgic value to it. But in terms of the actual trade, the Bitcoin is the better trade. And the fact that gold's had this price action kind of tells you that, Bitcoin, everyone was calling Bitcoin boring, and then look at what gold did. So that tells you that when Bitcoin gets moving again, it's going to be quite entertaining.
Mm-hmm. So let's dive right into it, man. You are in the center of the action. You've been
Not really. The center's a bit like it's a few hours away.
Across the strait, right? So let's talk about it, right? I mean, it happened February 28th. It all kicked off, and then your city was under attack, right? And I heard you say that your apartment was right at the front line where the missiles were coming in and the interceptors were going out. So talk about that, the early days and how it's changed over the last 6-8 weeks.
Yeah, the first day, I mean, look, I grew up in London. I didn't grow up around missiles. I didn't grow up, like we grew up around getting mugged. I didn't grow up around missiles flying over my head. So yeah, the first day was first evening, because that's when it all started. It started during the day. So it was like all day. And I remember the first one I heard, and I was like, what the fuck is that, right? Because I didn't realize that to get to Dubai mainland for these missiles, you got to fly all these drones. You got to fly over my building, right? If you want to attack anything in this part of town. So I'm looking at this thing. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So, it's like I've got drones and missiles trying to get in on one side, and I've got UAE interceptors getting in on another side. And by the way, nothing landed. Nothing landed. Nothing got hit on that first day. UAE's defenses, which by the way have not been tested in its entire history, right? It's never had to be tested. And their first test, they did such a wonderful job at protecting residents, citizens, everyone. And what's funny is, as these missiles are landing, you would expect, like, if this was in London and there's missiles going off, everything's a standstill. Go inside your house. Da 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 da. Delivery apps are still working. You want some food? The restaurants are still open. Like, there's zero stoppage, right? The only thing that closed down was the airport, and the airport was shut, I think, for like 3 days, and then it was back open again. So everyone was creating this drama about what's going on in Dubai, and the reality is that the UAE did a fantastic job. And for someone like me, I mean, look, I thought about it a few days later, like a couple weeks later. It's kind of standing on my balcony. I was like, what would I have done had these missiles and drones been landing on buildings? Like, that's a really weird thing to have to process. And luckily, I didn't have to, right? Because the UAE has done a fantastic job at defending itself. And, to put it into perspective, the UAE has received over 3,000 missiles and drones, right? And obviously, the weapon systems that they have here, which are US mainly based weapon systems, did a fantastic job. Iran had a really interesting strategy, which is we're being attacked. So what we're going to do is basically attack whoever can get us the most media. And so obviously you throw bombs at Dubai, right, in that scenario, because everyone, the Western governments go to work for you then because, they want their tax slaves back. So again, a lot of people decided to leave in that first week or so after the airports opened up. But what's funny is that within the first, I would say, 7 days, it had gone down by 90%. Within the first 10 days, it was down by 95%. And before the ceasefire, we were probably getting one or two. And we weren't hearing any of them because I think they were getting better at, taking them out over the ocean, basically. And, a lot of things, there's obviously videos of buildings being hit and whatever. That wasn't buildings being hit by actual drones and missiles. That was like shrapnel and stuff falling out the sky from when the jets or the interceptors are taking things out. A couple people unfortunately got killed because, from what I can tell, they heard a loud bang on top of their head and they decided to, instead of seek cover, they decided to look up, right? Which is sad, but, you got to be a bit smarter than that. So, yeah, what's funny is in the middle of wartime, it's still a safer place to be than London.
And it seemed like, especially in the early days, there was a lot of hate towards Dubai online. They were rooting for Dubai to lose. Yeah. Where do you think that comes from?
Oh, I was receiving messages when I was saying I'm telling people that everything's fine because I got people worried about me. And I'm receiving messages saying, just wait until this magical missile comes out of Iran, and then you're all going to be dead and this, that, and the other. I'm like, wow, like there is a lot. You know what it is at the end of the day? It comes down to this. There are people in the world that are just so incredibly trapped and feeling so incredibly held down because of the financial systems that they're in. If you're living in the UK over the last 20 years, you've literally just gotten poorer by the year. If you're living in the US, you've had so many psyops hit you in the last 20 years. You've had so many things shock your system. And then you see these people that are living in Dubai and everything's safe and I can leave my car unlocked. I can leave my apartment unlocked. I can leave my watch anywhere. How you reserve a table at an outside restaurant, any restaurant, is you walk in and you put your phone down on the table and then you go look at whatever you need to look at or go to the bathroom or whatever. No one's going to touch you. Like, you look at that, and then on top of that, they're paying zero taxes. And then on top of that, the oil costs are cheap, energy costs are cheap. And then on top of that, all the services are great. And then on top of that, it's just all of these things and then there's nothing you can do besides hate. and wish that that ends, because that might give you a slight hope that you're doing the right thing, when in the back of your mind, you know you're not. You know you're facing an injustice. You know your government is fucking you. You know that, but you can't do anything about it for whatever reason. Maybe you've got a family that's holding you back. Maybe you're not in a position to do anything about it. Whatever it is, you've got all of that hate. And then suddenly, the one place that's all over the internet at all times for being quote unquote utopia is being attacked. Of course you're going to throw hate. Mm-hmm. Of course. It's just a sign of how much people are hurting right now.
If you look at millionaire flights on a country basis, number one is China. Number two is the UK. And the vast majority of those people are going to Dubai, right? The UAE and the cities around there. For you on that search, looking for the right place to live, I know you have experience in Latin America. What are on your top priority list for finding the perfect place for you and your wealth?
Yeah, it's funny because people ask me, like, why did you move to the UAE? And obviously, before I moved here, even in the first few months, it was like taxes. It's the easiest thing to say. You've only got to be here for 6 months, and suddenly taxes will start moving down the list for you, right? Certainly did for me, right? I think safety and not worrying about anything to do safety-wise is absolute priority number one. There's a reason why the UAE is a great place to raise a family, is because you don't have to worry about your kids getting kidnapped, getting beaten, getting shot, and none of this. You don't have to worry about any of this. If your kid gets lost anywhere, you're going to find them within minutes, right? People have a certain respect for that, and the people that live here appreciate it so much that they protect it. So that's number one. Number two, you want a stable political environment. And one of the best things about living in the UAE is that I need to not have any political conversations about where I'm living. In fact, all of the political conversations that go on in the UAE are about the UK and the US. There is no political conversations going on about the UAE. Firstly, because it's a dictatorship, right? So it's like, what's the point of having the conversation? But secondly, everything just kind of makes common sense here, right? Everything they do, it's like, yeah, I want that to happen. So what am I going to complain about, right? I don't know, I am even trying right now to think about something I could complain about. And I don't know, it's anything that's like complaint worthy is so small, it's not even worth talking about. So, when I think about that, it's like, you absolutely want safety, you absolutely want political stability, and you actually absolutely want financial stability. The fact that they've managed to go through this period with a sovereign wealth fund that can take care of the country, I think that's a very, very positive thing here, and they've demonstrated that this is a template that works really well. So that's the way. That's what I kind of think about. Those are the top three things. And then, after that, you get all your, food and nightlife and whatever else you want to look at, people you want to meet and whatever. But really, it's those top three things that are important.
And it is playing a pivotal role in this great game that we have geopolitically going on. So America went after Venezuela, and then we did this excursion into Iran. What do you think is Trump's goal here, and is he accomplishing it?
It's hard to tell whether they're accomplishing it because I don't know what the goal is. I can just tell you on the ground what it kind of feels like is, and again, I don't know. I'm not a military expert. I have no clue, right? But it kind of feels like that the U.S. is shrinking in its physical power and its physical dominance while making sure that its financial dominance expands. And so what I think you're going to see, and I said this a few weeks ago, and we started seeing the signs of it, what I think you're going to see more of in this region is members of this region form partnerships and alliances with China, and then the Middle East, take its position as West Asia, while the US can take care of the Western Hemisphere extremely well. And I think you're going to see this rise of this polar powers per se. Again, that's just how it feels on the ground right now. I mean, why has Taiwan sent its leadership to China in this period? You know,
Yeah.
all of a sudden. So why has China not gotten involved? You know, so you see a lot of those things and you start asking questions like, I mean, do I think that the stated objectives will be achieved? No, I don't. I don't think they'll be achieved. I don't think you're going to see regime change in Iran. You know, if you put different makeup on a pig, it's still a pig, right? So Iran is run by the IRGC. I think, you know, no matter who the face of the leadership is, I don't think the overall regime is going to change. I don't know if they're going to grab the uranium. I don't know any of that. And again, I'm not a military expert, so I have no clue. My job is to look at the markets, and the markets are telling me that no, you know, the smart money is not taking this as seriously as everybody else. The one thing that is quite concerning is like the conversation in the fashion of I'm about to wipe out a civilization. I think that is presenting an image that, you know, maybe is questionable.
Yeah, there have definitely been a lot of erratic tweets in the last couple of weeks where he tries to escalate over the weekend while markets are closed and then try to get some sort of resolution before Monday morning or Sunday night when the futures open. But one thing I'd love to ask you about is the Iranian toll booth using Bitcoin as a means to charge people to get through the Strait of Hormuz. Do you think this is part of the just game theoretical endgame for Bitcoin to be neutral reserve currency of the world?
Listen, if I was financial advisor to Iran, I'd be advising them to do exactly that, right? Well, we're going to take payments in Bitcoin. We're going to build up our Bitcoin strategic reserve, and that's it. It's the one thing that nobody can fuck with. So, yeah, I mean, it makes complete common sense. If you know that, I mean, look, well, nobody knows what the hell is going on. They sent B2s last year. You guys sent B2s last year to blow up the nuclear program. We were then told that the entire nuclear program was completely destroyed. So now we're back. You guys, like the US is back to destroy the thing that was destroyed last year. None of it makes any sense, right? So in that environment, when you're dealing with that much uncertainty, Bitcoin is the best thing to have. And whether it's for Iran or the US or whoever, I think everyone should get some.
And when you talk about a multipolar world and the US withdrawing physically but maintaining that financial control, how do you see stablecoins playing into that overall?
Yeah, I think that is the method that this happens, right? The U.S. dollar stablecoin can go around the world faster than the U.S. military, so it's a much better weapon to use to keep U.S. dominance. Just do it through the dollar. It's quite funny right now because I'm talking to I've got so many American friends, and you know, there are a lot of them are, you know, MAGA and America first and America only and America isolationist and et cetera, et cetera. And then they're kind of pissed off when I say America's reducing its physical dominance power on this side of the world. And I said, but you can't have both things. If it's America isolationist focusing on America, the inherent thinking behind that is you stop focusing on the rest of the world. Like you know, these two, that's how it should work. So, you know, stable coins is the best way to do it because you allow the jurisdiction of America to focus on itself and the Western Hemisphere, and yet the U.S. dollar then becomes kind of an entity of its own, which can spread around the world and do what it needs to do.
And so if America does withdraw physically, but has these stable coins, are we able to maintain our standard of living? And does the dollar remain the world reserve currency for much longer?
I think the dollar can remain the world reserve currency, and the standard of living of Americans inside of America can go down. But I think both of those things can happen. You know, and this is one of the advantages that I have of growing up in the United Kingdom is seeing the UK go through a degradation of quality of life, and watching an empire kind of shrink, right? Now, the UK at that point didn't have world reserve currency, so it would have been interesting to see what would have happened if it was the world reserve currency while this has been going on. But, I don't know. It's certainly not looking good. I don't know if quality of life is, I mean, if you took away the credit card, is quality of life even that good right now in the US? I don't know.
Yeah, it's the K-shaped economy, right? Where the top 10% are really keeping the spending afloat, and if you suck that out, then it all collapses, right?
Yeah, and the crazy part is, like, when Rockefeller and Morgan and Carnegie, et cetera, were running around, they had no other options. So you had to make the U.S. the best place in the world to live. Same thing was going on in the U.K. at that time, at the time. Whereas now, if you are an elite, right, like I live in a jurisdiction. Most of my wealth is not managed in the jurisdiction that I live in, and most of the execution of that wealth doesn't happen in the jurisdiction where I live or where it's managed. So it's like I can literally be tomorrow in any city and live the same quality of lifestyle as I'm living in Dubai or London or anywhere, right? That wasn't true back in the day. So when that starts to happen, and then you're looking at a world going, okay, well, there's people here that absolutely hate me and want to tax me to shit and want to see me be less rich. Well, I can still take advantage of the US dollar and the US system and the US empire and just be in Switzerland or just be in Dubai or just be in Shanghai or wherever, right? I can be wherever I want because the playground is no longer a physical jurisdiction. It's anywhere at any time. And that's why we've got this issue. Like, you can just, seep power from the West and put it into the East if you are, an elite, right? You can just make capital move from different sides of the world.
And you brought up a great point that the magnates of the past had to invest into their local communities, and now we're seeing these AI guys, right? The Sam Altmans and the Elons. They get a lot of hate because they aren't giving back in the way that these old tycoons used to. What's your take on the AI market? Is it a bubble, or are we about to launch off into a new paradigm?
It's definitely not a bubble, but I don't know where the winners are, if that makes any sense. Like, it's definitely not a bubble. AI is real. But where are the winners? I don't know. I don't try and spend my time thinking about that. My focus is on Bitcoin, and at some point maybe I'll have to change that focus. But I think Bitcoin is the best investment of my lifetime, and we'll see how that pans out. Again, like I said, maybe at some point once the CAGR starts to diminish, I need to spin that out somewhere. But at this point, we've got one asset that's completely got finality of scarcity, and it's the only time we've ever had it, and we've got unlimited amounts of money being printed. There's just it is the play. So I don't spend my time thinking about it. I'm fascinated at using these AI tools, and my life has become a lot better using them. But trying to figure out what to invest in, I don't have no clue.
What's been your biggest personal gain using AI?
Just the efficiency of executing ideas, just to see how the ideas will operate in the world. There was times where, it might take a couple weeks to do something, and now, within 4 or 5 hours, you can kind of get it done and see how it looks in the real world. I get it to analyze everything, blood work, health markers, keep an eye on all sorts of different things, keep an eye on markets, like everything. If you're not talking to AI for at least an hour a day right now, you are going to fall behind. Like, you've got absolute intelligence. And if you're not sitting there talking to AI, you're going to fall behind.
I agree. And it's funny, being on X, you think everybody is in on it, but no, it's really quite small, the percentage of people who are using it on a daily basis.
Yep.
Do you build with it? Do you make apps?
No, I haven't got into that. No, I haven't got into that yet.
I hear you. Well, the other topic du jour, of course, is the other technological breakthrough that Google says is coming not too long from now, is quantum. they put a new deadline of 2029 that everybody should be upgrading out of ECDSA, the current algorithm, of course, that protects Bitcoin, the signatures. How much weight do you put into the quantum threat for Bitcoin?
I put in weight on that threat because institutional capital puts in weight on that threat. That's it. I have full trust that Bitcoiners will figure out how to make, Bitcoin quote unquote quantum resistant. But certainly there is a need to get it done because institutional capital is worried about it. So that's as far as my thought process goes.
Have you heard any big money people bring up quantum? Honestly, I do think it has been sort of one of the reasons for this sell-off over the last 6 months is just they're talking about it, right? If somebody who works at Jefferies hears them talk about quantum on CNBC is a threat to Bitcoin, then it might make them question whether to put money towards it, right?
Yeah. It certainly does.
And so then another question with Bitcoin, of course, and quantum is that I do think we will have quantum resistant solution for Bitcoin, but that makes everybody have to move their Bitcoin. And there are, of course, over 1.1 million that belong to Satoshi that haven't moved in well over 15 years. Are you of the camp that we should freeze those Bitcoins so that they can't be stolen and dumped? Or is Bitcoin property rights paramount to you and we shouldn't touch them and what happens to them happens?
Yeah, we shouldn't touch them.
Thank you. Yes, I'm of the...
Is that a test? That
was a test. That was a Rob purity test. Yes. No, there's a lot of proposals. I mean, Jameson Lopp just put out BIP 361 that said that we need to freeze these coins, as Satoshi's coins will then just be eliminated from the market. But you could compare it to lost golden treasure at the bottom of the ocean, and if that's found, it should be recycled.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. I was just gonna. At the end of the day, the power of Bitcoin is that all the pirates can try going after the treasure, and the point is that the pirates can never get the treasure. Right. That's the value proposition of Bitcoin. So, if the pirates can get the treasure, they deserve the treasure.
Absolutely. Nice. So, in closing, what's one thing that you think is still most misunderstood about Bitcoin? You've done so much education. You've talked to so many people. What do people still not get?
This is going to sound so weird. They don't understand how much of a done deal this is. That's what I would say. I literally have stopped talking about Bitcoin in my day-to-day life, like unless someone brings it up. It is such a done deal to me in terms of an IQ test. I cannot even be bothered to talk about it because you've got BlackRock in the game, you've got the US government in the game, you've got every government worldwide in the game now. This is such a done deal that all you have to do is sit there. And these morons can't even do that. They want to trade, they want to buy this, they want to do that, they want to, get into this coin, that coin, diversify AI, blah, 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 blah. So the one thing that they don't get is how much of a done deal it is. And if they just shut the fuck up and just sat there, that is going to be the most. But, again, people are not accustomed to doing that. They're not used to doing that. They're going to do what they're programmed to do, which is, grab some of this wealth and then piss it away because that's what they've been programmed to do. And that's what their bloodline has been programmed to do. And every single generation, a small percentage of people make it out. And the other majority continues going back and telling stories about how, at one point they had all of this wealth and now they don't.
Yeah, it's a message that to a lot of people is hard to hear because it's the truth, right? And it doesn't sit right with them or it doesn't feel good when they're confronted with it. Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate your time. Thank you for hopping on, and I wish you the best. And in dealing with that situation, hopefully the ceasefire holds and life will just be back to normal over there.
Thank you, my friend. It was a pleasure.
Cheers. Until next time. Thanks for making it to the end of the video. If you could drop a like and a share, it would help in our mission to accelerate adoption. If you're looking for more Bitcoin signal, join over 10,000 readers of our newsletter, Bitcoin News Weekly. Every Monday morning, we send out the biggest headlines of Bitcoin to keep you in the know in under 5 minutes. Links below in the description. Then come hang with us live every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern. We break it all down live on stream with a new guest, and you can add your 2 sats in the chat. See you next week.